It's time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bring you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Charlotte Dunker, football reporter for The Times, and Miguel Delaney, chief football writer at The Independent. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Here's the Mirror. Old Trafford United make Ollie Watkins, the Villa and England star, their number one target. There's also a big focus on the Lionesses, the Queens of Europe, after their parade through London. The Ollie Watkins story is everywhere. This is the Sun's back page. What a striker. United want £45 million Villa man. There's also a focus on the Lionesses and on Newcastle as well. Ed's gone over Isak. That's Eddie Howe's comments that he made earlier. We'll get into that. As for the Mail, they go with Watkins and Benjamin Sesko, top United's hit list. Serena's victory dance. We saw that earlier in the hour. Serena Williams dancing with her favourite rapper. And the Express, United turn to Ollie. The Guardian, they focus on the cricket pitch battle. India's head coach in angry clash with Oval ground staff. And Leah Williamson saying her Lionesses are not done yet, making history. As for the Telegraph front page, big focus on the Lionesses. Serena Wiegman lost for words. That is a rarity as she was surprised by her favourite musician. And England manager, India fury at Oval groundsman is another story. We're going to get into that as well towards the end. And the Times front page, playful Serena, the Lionesses dancing queen, with also a focus on the cricket spat. And then the Star back page, summer Ollie days. I think we'll give headline of the day to them. Manchester United want striker deal for Ollie Watkins. There's a bit of a discrepancy over the amount of money they might have to pay. I think we'll start with the Mirror here, Miguel. The newspapers are suggesting could be 60 million, could be 45 million, but it seems like Manchester United are looking to Ollie Watkins to solve their striker crisis. Does that feel a good fit for you? Yeah, absolutely. I think above anything, especially when you consider some of the strikers that Manchester have signed lately, the most obvious one being Højlund and Xerxes, who may yet have potential, that's up for debate. Watkins is a proven Premier League goal scorer. And given Manchester United's difficulties last season, one of the biggest being in front of goal, I mean, it's an immediate solution to that problem. I know it sounds so simplistic, but sometimes it is that simple. He's a guarantee of goals in that sense. He knows the division. We're talking about a player in his prime. If there is some variation on the potential price you have to pay, the other side of that is, I don't think there's much variation yet on the line that Villa are making clear, which is that he is not for sale. Now, the one thing about that I would say is, I mean, yes, it's their stated position, or sorry, their position people understand from behind the scenes. But in a market like this, where PSR involves situations where executives talk about how sometimes you have to sell players before you necessarily want them for football reasons, it's hard not, and given the noise coming out of Old Trafford, it's hard not to think that something might be possible down the line. Maybe as they get closer to the window, or as Villa think about their own business. Yeah, Charlotte, you've been writing about this story as well. You're in Chicago following Manchester United on their pre-season tour. Your angle is slightly different. Ollie Watkins and Benjamin Sesko at RB Leipzig are the two targets for United. And there's one line I want to pick out. The club need to decide which option better suits Ruben Amorim's style. They've only got a fortnight till the season starts.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, these are the top two targets. And as I've said, they're looking at how one of them will fit into the system. But as Miguel's pointed out, this summer Manchester United have started targeting Premier League proven players, which would lead you towards Ollie Watkins. You've also got the situation where Villa are interested in Garnacho, one of the players that Manchester United are trying to get rid of. So could there be something done there in terms of that? Sesko would cost them a lot more money, but he's a lot younger. Ollie Watkins is 29, Sesko is 22. There's obviously pros and cons for both of them. So I think it's just something that United Chiefs are weighing up at the moment. We're also being told by people we speak to that it's a possibility they go into the season without a new number 9. I mean, you look at what happened to them last season and the lack of goals, but in the game against West Ham at the weekend, Rasmus Højlund didn't score, but he's starting to build that relationship with Cooney. You've got Mbeumo that's going to come into this system as well. He spoke to us yesterday about how he could possibly play through the middle, and he's a proven Premier League goal scorer as well. So there's plenty of options still on the table. I don't think it's necessarily they're 100% going to go for Watkins and they're going to get him. Like Miguel said, Villa are very strong in their stance at the minute that they don't want to sell their front man. So there's lots of negotiations to go. It's highly likely that they'll go into that Arsenal game without a new number 9, but obviously the transfer window is still open until September. So yeah, it's one that's probably going to play out and we'll be talking about for the next few weeks on here.
Yeah, I think we will, and always good to have a backup plan. The Mail is following a similar line to yourself, Charlotte. Watkins and Sesko topping United's hit list. Aston Villa are in the Europa League, Miguel. Manchester United are not in Europe. Is the lure of Manchester United still such that he would snub European football?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like an internet meme in this sense, but it is still Manchester United. The name alone carries stature. I suppose it's a little bit like with Brian Mbeumo, who's obviously been talking about Watkins today. I know we'll come to that. Charlotte's interviewed him. But United still offer that possibility. There's always that sense. And really, I suppose, the belief that eventually it's going to get right, and it's still Old Trafford, it's still the potential of trophies, all of that. So, yes, it does hold allure. On the other side, I suppose, you mentioned Villa being in European football. I did mention their PSR situation there. That doesn't sound like it's as concerning for them as maybe people had thought when they didn't get Champions League at the end of the season, because obviously so far they've stayed resolute in their own business. And yeah, I think there's a lot to play out in this. The Sesko one is interesting though, because I mean ultimately Arsenal. I mean I've heard as well. I wrote myself tonight that Amorim likes Sesko. I think some of United's recruitment staff as well. There's a bit of background there with Vivel. They obviously are well aware of his qualities. Arsenal were most interested in him because of his potential high ceiling, something we've talked about before with the likes of Højlund. Maybe he's a bit further down the track. He has played in the Euros. But Arsenal ultimately moved away from that deal because Leipzig wanted €80 million. And Arsenal just didn't feel his potential ceiling was worth that this summer. So, I mean, right now you think he potentially costs more than Watkins, where there's a few more questions. But yeah, as you say, there's a lot of spinning plates this summer now.
Yeah, you touched on Brian Mbeumo has been speaking about Ollie Watkins. That's the Sun's focus of this story. The two of them played together at Brentford. You were involved in this chat with Brian Mbeumo earlier, Charlotte. What's he had to say about his former teammate?
Yeah, he described him as the complete striker. So, I mean, what higher praise could he put on the guy? So, and normally he wasn't getting involved in speculation in terms of he wasn't saying he was going to come to United or anything like that. It was more about the relationships that they built together at Brentford and the great times that he had at Brentford rather than what could potentially happen at Manchester United. But yeah, he seemed like a nice guy. He spoke to us about playing chess and how that helps the strategy in his brain and how that helps him play football, and also how he relaxes playing the piano, which Miguel will know he speaks to lots of footballers, and that's not normally what you expect them to hear them say that they do in their spare time. So he seems excited to be here. He still hasn't played any part for Manchester United. When he was at Brentford, he wasn't actually training on the grass because he knew he wanted a transfer. He stayed in the gym. He wanted to keep himself injury-free. So he is a bit behind his teammates in terms of their pre-season preparations. We went to training this morning. He was involved. So United have got a game out here tomorrow night, USA time. So it'll be interesting to see if he features for the first time. And also, where is he going to fit into this Amorim system? Because we've seen him play out wide for Brentford. He spoke about that on the right wing. Is he going to play in one of them 2-10 positions? Are we going to see him play as a number 9 if Manchester United don't get the number 9 in that they want? So there's lots of different options to see. It's going to be interesting to see where he slots into this system, but as of yet he's not pulled on a Manchester United shirt, so we've all been less guessing as to where he's going to fit in.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. Miguel, you've also been writing about Manchester United but also Chelsea and the horse trading that Manchester United seemingly might have to get involved in as they look to send players out, bring players in, but also balance the PSR.
So, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, obviously, we all know Amorim wants this huge overhaul, but that overhaul is not possible without sales that allow PSR headroom. And, of course, it's complicated by the fact there are about 4 players, given Rashford has gone to Barcelona, that Amorim absolutely wants out. So, you know, the maths don't quite up, so they're going to have to come up with some solutions. And one of the ones I've heard of and that I've written about there was they've been speaking to both Chelsea and Villa about Garnacho, and obviously, yeah, that's been raised, as Charlotte said there, with the Watkins situation. But there was also similar broached with Chelsea. Chelsea have a long-standing interest in Garnacho going back to January. A deal didn't get done then because the price was too high. At that point, I think it was United wanted around 68 million. Well, from what I hear and what I've written tonight, there's still a considerable difference of valuation, because while it had been spoken about how maybe Nicholas Jackson go the other way, Chelsea wants 80 million for him. They've been good sellers this summer, Chelsea. They got some high prices of players that they haven't necessarily wanted. The latest today being João Felix. That's a sort of capability United would love to have, given some of their difficulties. But on the other side, Chelsea don't want to pay more than 30 million for Garnacho. Now, of course, some of this is a little like with Villa, a negotiation tactic or a stance that you set out. But it shows maybe right now Chelsea are operating in the market from a position of strength, even though they do need to sell players, whereas Manchester United are having to make things happen. And that's going to, I suppose, influence a lot of deals.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers in your piece, I know you've touched on them there. Chelsea valuing Nicholas Jackson at £80 million and they see Garnacho at £30 million. What do you make of the numbers there, Charlotte? They were a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, from people I've spoken to around Manchester United, I'm sure Miguel's the same. I think Manchester United would not want to pay £80 million for Nicholas Jackson. And if that was how much they were asking for him, I think they would step away from the deal, especially if Garnacho was only going the other way for 30 million, because Manchester United have still got to then pay £50 million for a player who, yeah, he scored more goals than Rasmus Højlund, but he's hardly set the Premier League alight himself either, has he? So I think if you were comparing Nicholas Jackson with Ollie Watkins, for example, all hypothetical, because at this time, obviously, Villa are still saying they're not selling. Out of the two of them on paper, I think you'd opt towards going towards someone like Watkins. He is a proven Premier League goal scorer that's been more effective than Nicholas Jackson has so far. And the price tag for him would be lower. So, I mean, there's lots of ifs and buts. But yeah, I think Manchester United would want to recoup more than £30 million for Garnacho. Obviously, he's a homegrown player. That definitely helps in terms of PSR, full profit for him. And I don't think they would value Nicholas Jackson at 80 million. So if there was anything to progress in that deal, I think both of those numbers would have to go in the opposite directions.
Yeah, as you said earlier, still a long way to go until the window shuts. I imagine some of those fees might tweak a bit. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning papers, including this in the Times. Playful Serena, the Lioness's dancing queen, and India's fury with the Oval groundsman. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Charlotte Dunker, football reporter for The Times, and Miguel Delaney, chief football writer at The Independent. Let's focus on the Lionesses after that brilliant parade in London today. We'll go to The Guardian. Williamson, the captain, says the Lionesses are not done making history. Well, they've made history going back-to-back in the Euros, Charlotte. That must mean they're targeting a big World Cup win in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. And, well, they just failed at the last hurdle, didn't they, in the last World Cup? And that's going to be their aim in 2027 is to go there and win. But I think when you read what she said in terms of they're targeting more history, if you go back to when they won the Euros in 2022 and they celebrated in front of 7,000 fans in Trafalgar Square, and then there was over 60,000 fans packed out the Mall today to celebrate them winning this time round. So you can just see the increase in popularity. One of the stats I read was that 60,000 more women are playing football on a more regular basis since the Lionesses won the Euros in 2022. So you can see the impact and the legacy that them winning that tournament had. And I think it's just going to further increase after this tournament win as well. And you read that some of the players are a bit worried, thinking, oh no, we're going to go down the Mall and not enough people are going to be there and it's not going to be packed out. And then you could see how emotional they were because they just couldn't believe it. They all live in this bubble, don't they? They've been in this tournament bubble for a month. They will obviously know that it's been well received at home, but until they come back and they see this reception and how well it's been received and how proud everyone was and how excited everyone was to see them lift the trophy, I suppose they don't believe it until they see it. And what an occasion it was for them all today. And yes, Serena and Burna Boy, I don't think that was the collaboration that anyone was really expecting to see today either.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to confess, I didn't know who Burna Boy was, but it is a lovely moment with Serena Wiegmann rapping along to her favourite artist. That's going to warm your cockles. The other thing, Miguel, is that I did think, well, you could almost see that Serena Wiegmann might say, England job completed it, mate, mic drop, walk off. But it doesn't look like she's considering being anywhere other than being the England boss. Oh, no,
and not completed yet, to be fair, because as Charlotte said there's the World Cup, which she, of course, was within a goal of claiming 2 years ago. Obviously, the FA have her signed up till 2027 as well. It's funny because so I just got back from Switzerland last night. I did all of England's campaign and actually most of Spain's games as well. And throughout, as England were not performing great in the middle of it, there was a little bit back and forth, especially as it looked like they could genuinely go out in the group stage, go out in the quarter-final. We were talking among the press ourselves, if this goes badly, do we have to raise the question then, like about, do the FA have to rethink about 2027? Which I think was never going to be the case because, I mean, ultimately the last 3 years before that earned her the right to have this tournament. And, of course, she's ended up winning it again. But, yeah, it's going to be all in now for 2027 and a big pitch for the World Cup. In what feels like as well, they may be, I mean, we're right in the middle of what feels like a series against Spain as the two modern powers of the women's game and actually argue the men's game. But Emma Hayes, as the new USA manager, might have something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I think she will. They would be the powerhouses in football. The Sport newspaper goes with that same headline, not done yet. Liam Williamson tells the Lionesses, tells fans Lionesses want more glory. How much of it do you think has to be shaped around younger, fresher players? Michelle Adjumang springs to mind. She was the young player of the tournament. She'll want to be a starter, surely.
No, she was an absolute hero for England, wasn't she? And I think when you look at the squad and the way it is, we saw some of the older players dropping out before the tournament, and people were questioning what this England side was going to look like. And this tournament was a chance for some of them to step up. They've done that now. When you take it forward another couple of years, it'll be time for them to take over the mantle and for them to be the leading names again. So they've shown that they can do that. There was doubts whether they could in this tournament. They've shown they're more than capable. So give them another 2 years to develop, then I'm sure this team looks like it's in safe hands.
Yeah, I thought Rory McIlroy had Sports Personality of the Year sewn up this year, Miguel, but Chloe Kelly just seems to be writing her own script. She missed a penalty in the tournament, tucked away the rebound. She couldn't even get into her club side at the start of the year. She's ending the year as a Champions League winner with Arsenal and a European champion with England. Talk of endorsements worth £4 million. What a story.
Yeah, I was sat in front of her on Sunday. She came in after the game and after a penalty and said, to all the people who doubted me, thank you. Or to all the people who wrote me off, thank you. Which speaks, I suppose, to the personality aspect of Sports Personality of the Year, because she's not afraid to speak her mind. And that, I suppose, marries with her approach to football and the way her directness changed every single England game which she came on, particularly the final. I mean, that cross was superb. Then, of course, there was the penalty after she admitted she missed 3 penalties the day before in training, and had missed one earlier in the tournament as well. Actually, against Italy, he scored the rebound. But yeah, we're talking about someone who's now just got this profile that only amplifies the status of the England women's team, who are, of course, repeat European champions.
So that is the joy of sport. What about the fury of sport? Let's focus on a lot of the papers going with India's fury with the groundsman. That is the headline in your newspaper, The Times, Charlotte. This was already a spicy test match series. There's a big decisive game that starts on Thursday, and all of a sudden it seems everyone's losing their cool. The Indian head coach pointing his finger angrily at the Oval groundsman. What have you made of this?
Yeah, it's set it up nicely, hasn't it, for the 5th test that starts on Thursday. I mean, the pressure's on India, isn't it? And I think maybe that's what's getting to them there. I think everyone loves to see a bit of heated debate or heated arguments in all sport, to be honest. And obviously both sides think they're right. I think India have come out and said a bit more than England have, to be honest. But like you say, it's been a heated series so far. There was an incident in the 3rd test, in the 4th test, and now we're kicking off the 5th test with this. So it's going to be interesting to see how it spills out over onto the pitch. But yeah, it just reflects the heated nature of the whole series, to be honest. And yeah, it's set it up, like you say, for a spicy end.
Yeah, and it's a good prep for England, I think, ahead of the Ashes. This is the sort of thing you would expect when England play Australia in the cricket, Miguel. What did you make of the quote from the India head coach where he said to the groundsman, he is a groundsman, he said, "You are just a groundsman. You can't tell us what to do."
I actually think that's one of the worst things I've heard in modern sport, because to speak to someone else like that, it's a disgrace. No matter about the debate about the pitch, the rights or wrongs of the situation, or maybe how the groundsman maybe asked him to leave, just the sense of arrogance about it. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about someone who's just a sportsman, much as we're all on the show because we love sport and speak about it. You're not like making grand scientific breakthroughs that aid humanity. And for him to speak about in that way to someone, just the arrogance of it, the elitism of it, it's preposterous. And it's something, I suppose, that maybe strikes a little bit of a chord with journalists, because we obviously see behind the scenes a lot. And I remember speaking to someone actually at Manchester United about this, one of Ferguson's big things was to telling his players, and how he would often judge his players, was you speak to every single member of staff, whoever you come in touch with, the same way you speak to people who you think are your peers or your or above you. And I mean, it's awful stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, unpalatable for sure. Let's go back to the Sun. Focus on the sidebar. Ed's gone over Isak. This is Eddie Howe saying, basically, Alexander Isak's future is not under his total control. I suppose what else can he say? But do you get the sense, Charlotte, that Eddie Howe feels he might be fighting a losing battle with Isak?
I think he knows that obviously Liverpool are interested. The players made it clear that he wants to leave, and there is that release clause. There is that £150 million, isn't there? If Liverpool come in and pay what Newcastle wants, then I think Eddie Howe knows that he goes. Eddie Howe's also been in this game long enough to know how these transfer sagas tend to play out, and in this situation it's never normally in favour of the club that the player's at the minute. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in terms of Isak to Liverpool in the next few weeks. Luis Diaz is obviously going to be confirmed soon as an exit there. Will Darwin Núñez leave as well, and that gives them even more money? Are they then going to go in for him? Are they going to go in for someone else? So I don't think Liverpool's spending is done this summer. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Isak ends at Newcastle. But, yeah, Eddie Howe's an experienced manager, and he'll know how these situations end. And if he does end up at Newcastle at the end of the transfer window, they'll have to draw a line under it and move on. But at the minute, it's overshadowing everything that they're doing.
Yeah, just a minute on this one, Miguel. What's your hunch? Is Isak Anfield bound this summer?
Yeah, I think after a long, circuitous August, he eventually ends up there. A few sales on Liverpool's part. Newcastle obviously need to get things in order. But this is one of those situations where you're almost not quite working against the clock, but working against your situation, where once a player, or once a club knows a star player wants to explore options, I suppose, as a terminology using this, suddenly you're in this kind of race against your own assets, so to speak, and the price they can command. It makes it more difficult for the club, and really reality intervenes no matter the stature of a club or what you want the stature of a club to be. And sometimes it might age your team as well. So yeah, I think Liverpool eventually get a deal done.
Yeah, nicely wrapped up. Miguel, Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us on Back Pages tonight. That nicely wraps it up for us. If you missed any of the show, there's a chance to see Back Pages tonight at 1:30. And the show's also available as a podcast. You can download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, all them places that you get your podcasts from. And don't forget, join us again.